We spent the night at a friend's country house, but he disappeared, and police ignored me. So this happened last fall, and I still don't fully know what the hell went on that night. I've never told the full story before, mostly because it sounds like something out of a bad horror movie. But it wasn't ghosts or anything. It was worse. It was real. And it happened to me and my friend Matt, out in the middle of nowhere. We'd gone to stay at a house in a small rural village, like one of those quiet places where the nearest gas station is 20 minutes away and everything closes by 6 p.m. The house belonged to Matt's uncle, who'd moved abroad years ago and supposedly hadn't been back since. It was just sitting there, empty. Matt had keys. He said we could go up for a chill weekend, disconnect, drink beer, maybe go hiking. I agreed mostly because I needed a break. I'd just gotten out of a relationship, work had been wrecking my brain. I figured a couple nights in the woods with no signal might be exactly what I needed. The first weird thing happened the second we arrived. The front door was already unlocked. Matt looked confused, even a little annoyed, like maybe someone had borrowed the place without telling him. But nothing inside seemed out of place. No signs of a break-in, no mess, just dust. The kind of dust that builds when a place hasn't been lived in for a while. He said maybe his uncle had left it unlocked last time he was there. I didn't question it. I should have. The house itself was small. One floor, creaky floors, a wood stove that barely worked, and a constant smell of dry pine and something else. I kept getting whiffs of something metallic, like old blood or wet metal, but only in the hallway between the kitchen and the back bedroom. It wasn't strong, just there. Anyway, we unpacked, opened a couple beers, made pasta on the busted old stove, and played cards until it got dark. By 10 p.m., it was pitch black outside. Not suburban black, not some streetlights nearby black. I'm talking full rural nothingness. No moon, no cell signal, just forest pressing in from all sides. Around midnight, Matt went out to smoke and I went to brush my teeth. When I came back into the living room, he wasn't on the porch anymore. I figured he'd gone around back or into the woods to take a leak. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I called out for him, nothing. Just when I started to panic a little, I heard the front door creak open and he walked in. I asked where he went. He said, nowhere. I've been out front the whole time. I didn't push it, but something felt off. He looked pale, like he'd seen something. But when I asked if he was okay, he just shook his head and said, I'm fine. He wasn't. We decided to crash around 1 a.m. Matt took the bedroom. I stayed on the pull-out couch in the living room. I didn't sleep. I don't know why. Maybe the silence. Maybe the way the trees outside looked like shadows moving in the wind, even though the air was completely still. Around 2:30, I finally started to drift off. That's when I heard the floorboards creak. At first, I thought it was Matt going to the bathroom, but the sound wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from the front porch, just outside the door. I held my breath, waited, convinced myself it was an animal. A raccoon, maybe. Then the porch boards creaked again. Slower this time, like someone shifting their weight. I sat up on the couch, heart pounding, and looked toward the door. There was a window beside it, one of those narrow vertical panes with no curtains. That's when I saw it. A shadow. Not big, not small. Just human. Standing completely still. Facing the door. I froze. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. It stood there for what felt like forever. Then it took one step closer. Not toward the window. Toward the door itself. I scrambled for my phone. No signal. 0 bars. I got up, crept to Matt's room, and knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. Still nothing. I opened the door. He wasn't there. The bed was made. His bag was gone. His boots. Gone. I just stood there, confused and half numb. Had he left? In the middle of the night? With no sound? No lights? I heard another creak outside. I grabbed the closest thing that could be used as a weapon. A fireplace poker. And moved slowly to the front window again. The shadow was gone. But on the doorframe, there was now a handprint. Smudged. Greasy looking. 5 fingers. Too big to be mine. Too long. I turned every light on in the house. Locked every door. Sat in the middle of the living room with the poker across my knees and waited for daylight. Matt never came back. Around 7:30 a.m., the sun came up. No sign of Matt. His phone was gone too. I ran outside. No footprints. Nothing. Just the handprint. Still there. I got in the car and drove to the next town over. Finally got enough signal to call the police. Told them everything. that I was staying in the house, that someone was on the porch, that my friend was missing. They told me to give it time, that he probably just left early, maybe had an emergency. I told them I saw someone outside. They said, "Do you have any proof?" I sent them a photo of the handprint. They said, "Looks like condensation." Could have been yours. That was it. They wouldn't even send someone out. I called Matt's phone. Straight to voicemail, texted, no reply. Eventually, I drove back to the city. I kept waiting to get a message from him to find out he left early for some dumb reason. But I never did. 3 days later, I went to his apartment. It was empty, like totally cleared out. No clothes, no mail, no dishes in the sink. Like no one had lived there in months, but I'd been there the week before. He'd had a half-full fridge, dirty laundry on the floor, a shelf full of books. Now it was all gone. And I still don't know what happened that night in that house. I don't know who or what was outside the door. And I don't know where Matt went. But I do know this. Whatever was out there wasn't trying to scare us. It was trying to get in. After that night, I haven't slept right since. At first, I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe I panicked, filled in blanks with fear, made something ordinary into something else. That Matt probably left for a stupid reason and forgot to tell me, or he freaked out and ghosted. But your brain can lie to you all it wants. Your body knows better. And mine knew something was wrong. Very wrong. For a few days, nothing happened. I went back to work. I tried to pretend things were normal. I even tried texting Matt again, even though I knew I wouldn't get a response. But 4 days after I got back from the village, I found something on my apartment door. A smudged handprint. High up near the peephole. Greasy looking, same shape, same size as the one on the cabin door. I live on the 3rd floor. There's no outside access. You can only get to my door by using the elevator or the stairs inside the building. I checked with the building manager. No maintenance scheduled. No cleaning, no deliveries. No one had a reason to be there. I wiped the print off and didn't say anything to anyone. Not yet. That night, I dreamt about the house. Not the inside, just the porch. I was standing inside, staring through the front window at that same shadow, motionless, just like before. But this time it wasn't outside, it was inside the house, and I was the one locked out. I woke up in a cold sweat. That was the first night. The dreams kept coming. Sometimes I'd be back in the woods. Sometimes in my apartment, but the walls were made of rotted wood, and I could hear something breathing in the vents. Always the same feeling and something watching. Then things started going missing. Nothing big. My keys weren't where I left them. One of my shoes was in the kitchen for no reason. My toothbrush disappeared completely. I live alone. I don't have guests. Nothing made sense. I thought maybe I was going crazy. That maybe this was all stress. So I did the thing I should have done right away. I tried to contact Matt's family. He'd never talked much about them, but I had his mom's number from a contact form he'd sent me once when we were planning a trip. I texted first. No response. Then I called. She answered on the 3rd ring and sounded confused, not upset, not concerned, just sort of distant. When I said, "Hey, it's me. I'm one of Matt's friends," she paused and said, "Matt?" Told her I was talking about her son. Silence. Then she said, "I'm sorry, who is this again?" I explained everything, that we'd gone to his uncle's house in the village, that he'd disappeared, that I hadn't heard from him since. She cut me off. "I think you've got the wrong person." I was stunned. "Is this not Mrs. Collins?" "It is, but I don't have a son named Matt." Then she hung up. I just sat there, holding the phone. I checked the number again. It was the same one he'd texted me from before. I still had old messages from him saved, including ones where he talked about visiting my mom this weekend. I tried calling again, straight to voicemail. I opened our old group chat, the one with me, him, and 2 other guys we used to game with. Gone. The chat was still there, but his name was replaced with deleted user. I called one of the others, Josh. He answered after a few rings, sleepy and annoyed. When I asked him about Matt, he said, "Who?" I laughed, thought he was messing with me, but he wasn't. He sounded genuinely confused, like the name meant nothing. "You mean from college?" he asked. I never went to college with Josh. We met through Matt. "Dude, I don't know a Matt. Are you okay?" I hung up. I sat in silence for over an hour after that. Then I opened my photo app, searched Matt, nothing, no pictures, no videos, no messages, just blank spots, empty folders. But I remember him. I remember his face, his voice, his jacket, that dumb denim one he always wore even in the summer. I remember the way he laughed at his own jokes. I remember standing next to him in that cabin, eating pasta off chipped plates, talking about nothing. He was real, wasn't he? And that's when it clicked. I had to go back. To the village, to the house. Because whatever this was, it started there. And I couldn't take it anymore. The dreams, the handprints, the questions, the static in my brain every time I tried to remember anything clearly. I wasn't going to get answers sitting in my apartment waiting for another greasy mark to show up on the wall. I packed a bag that night, and before I left the next morning, I opened my front door to find something waiting on the floor. My missing toothbrush, wrapped in tissue, still damp. I drove back to the village just before sunset. It didn't look the same. I don't mean that anything had physically changed. The road was still cracked in the same spots. The same sagging fences leaned along the gravel. The same hand-painted signs advertised firewood and fresh eggs. But it felt different, like something was holding its breath the closer I got. The trees leaned in, the air got heavier, and the quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was hollow. When I pulled up to the house, the first thing I noticed was that the front gate, which we'd left swinging open, was now shut. Closed tight. The rusted chain hung loose. The lock was missing. I got out of the car and stood there a long time, just looking at the front door. Same dull red paint, now faded almost pink in places. Same cracked window pane above the porch. But something about it looked expectant, like it had been waiting. The door was unlocked. Again, not kicked in, not damaged, just waiting. I stepped inside. The air was warm and stale, thicker than it should have been, like the house had been sealed for decades, even though it clearly hadn't. The lights worked when I flicked the switch, but they flickered like they weren't used to being turned on. Everything inside looked exactly how we'd left it, except cleaner. Like someone had gone through the place and tidied up. The dishes we'd left in the sink were washed and stacked. The muddy footprints from Matt's boots were gone. Even the dust was missing. The hallway that led to the back bedroom felt longer than I remembered. The walls seemed too narrow, like they were folding in slightly. I went to the bedroom and found the bed freshly made. White sheets, folded corners, a single pillow with a dent in the middle like someone had just lifted their head off it. On the nightstand was a glass of water, still half full. I didn't drink it, I didn't touch anything. That's when I heard it, the sound of movement inside the walls. Not loud, just soft, deliberate brushing. Like something alive, moving slow, pressed right up against the insulation. I pressed my ear to the wall, and for a second I swore I heard breathing. I backed out into the hallway and walked straight to the kitchen. That's where I saw it. A small black object on the counter. A tape recorder. Old school, like from the 90s. I never saw it before. It wasn't here the first time. I didn't want to press play. I really didn't, but I couldn't stop myself. The tape hissed. Then I heard my voice. Flat. Detached. The window's still boarded. Something's under the house. I can hear it move at night. Matt thinks it's in the walls, but it's not. It's deeper. I felt ice crawl down my spine. I've never said those words before in my life. Not like that. Not into a recorder. But that was my voice, my tone, my cadence. I kept listening. There's something wrong with him. He sleeps with his eyes half open, talks in whispers when he thinks I'm not listening. I shut it off. Put it down. It kept playing. Don't let it know you're scared. That's when it starts pulling pieces out of you. The air shifted. No breeze, but I could feel it. A change in pressure, like the house had inhaled. I went for the front door, but it slammed shut before I reached it. The deadbolt clicked on its own. I sprinted to the back door, locked. The windows were nailed shut. I wasn't getting out. I stood in the center of the living room, every light flickering now, holding the recorder like it could somehow explain what was happening. That's when I heard the whisper. Not from the tape. From the ceiling. You brought it with you. I spun around. No one there. I pressed record. Out of instinct, maybe panic. I started talking. I said my name. The date. What had happened. Everything about Matt, the night on the porch, the dreams, the disappearing apartment. I talked for 15 straight minutes. The recorder clicked off on its own, then clicked back on. My voice again. A different tone this time. Frantic. Rambling. Don't forget the water. It remembers things. It can smell what you're afraid of. The basement isn't real. Don't go under. Don't let it name you. I never said those things. I never went in the basement. There was no basement. Or at least, I didn't think there was. But something about the floor in the living room was wrong. The boards didn't line up quite right. There was a square cut into the wood, almost invisible. Like a trapdoor. I knelt down, pressed my palm against it. Warm. Then I heard footsteps above me, even though there was no second floor. Slow, deliberate pacing. I stood up, but the room felt tilted now, like the house was sinking into itself. The corners were darker than they should have been. The lights flickered and went out. Total blackness. And in the dark, I felt something brush past me. Not touch. Just presence. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat locked up. Then light again. Only one lamp, flickering. The recorder sat on the floor now, playing one last message. Matt's voice. Some of us leave. Most of us stay. Some are remembered. Some are rewritten. I picked it up and pressed stop. The light died. I stayed in the dark until morning. When I opened the front door, because yes, now it opened, I stepped out and saw something written in the frost on the windshield of my car. One word. Again. I drove home. I haven't slept more than 2 hours since. I don't answer block numbers. I don't turn on the lights in the hallway. I still have the tape recorder. And sometimes, when I'm not even touching it, it plays by itself. And the voice I hear, it's mine. But it's saying things I haven't lived yet.